because for those of you that are watching and that are going to get offended, listen to me. If you are someone who's extremely sensitive, and you're going to be getting offended very easily with the things that I've had on the podcast, you might as well not even watch if it's going to get to the point where it's going to bother you. Because welcome to the Common Podcast, where we speak upon common sense and realize it really isn't that common. Now, today's topic is going to be literally about that, what I just said. I realized after uploading the podcast that I really didn't get an opportunity before uploading the very first podcast to kind of explain the whole foundation of this podcast. More specifically, why did I decide to start a podcast and what inspired it? I believe that that is something that is very important to cover going forward, because with that staple of mindset going forward and having all these people on the podcast is going to give people a great idea on what they can kind of grab from these podcasts and what I want them to grab. So first and foremost, let's kind of cover the title. It is called The Common Podcast, which at first sight would sound pretty bland, pretty unoriginal. and excuse me, I'm a little sick right now, but I thought it's like literally 1 a.m. right now. I'm just like, you know what? I want to get the podcast out. I'm just really trying to grind. But so it can seem that the title is pretty unoriginal and pretty lazy, right? At first glance, but the genius is more so in the slogan rather than the title. So in the beginning of your podcast, obviously this is the second one that's going to be uploaded, but you hear me say, welcome to the Common Podcast, where we speak upon common sense and realize it isn't common. So what really inspired this podcast and what really inspired me to want to start up my own show is the reality of false reality. What I what I discovered was that oftentimes what someone seems to be common sense to them isn't necessarily common sense to somebody else. I've seen multiple times and multiple occasions, including firsthand experience, where I think like, man, this has got to be common sense. Like, there's no way that this person does not agree. And in reality, when we get into a full-blown conversation, that is often not the case. Oftentimes, it's something completely opposite, and it has to do with the way they were raised, the ways they were taught, influences, and all of this stuff. And the reality is that not everybody's going to have the same ideas as you. Not everybody's going to have the same opinions as you. And it's not to say that either or is right or wrong, but just appreciating it for what it is. So the beauty about having a podcast is literally that, is having other people excuse me, I'm like really, really bad right now. Like, I feel fine, but the cough is just like extremely annoying. And excuse me. The fact is, or the cool thing is about having a podcast and me being able to invite people on the podcast is we're not always going to agree. What may seem common sense to me, what makes sense to me, isn't actually as common as I think, because I am literally proving it. I will be literally proving it podcast by podcast every time that I invite somebody in here, and I'm going to let them explain their story, give a very interesting testimony, because the people that I will be having on the podcast are not going to be on the podcast for just any reason. The people that I will be inviting on the podcast are going to have some type of significance in their lifestyle, or had some type of significance in their lifestyle. So they're not just going to be on here for no reason. So with that being said, We're not always going to agree. A podcast, and especially this podcast, is going to be very opinion based. Realize that me, myself, and whoever else I'm going to be having on the podcast are human too, and we will be enforcing our opinions. And obviously, it's going to be opinion based, and more oftentimes than not biased by the way that we were raised, by the way that we've been influenced by our surroundings, whatever the case is. Understand that the podcast is going to be highly influenced and very opinion based. That has to do with community, where they grew up, and all of that. So I just want to set that disclaimer to you that are watching and that are going to get offended. Listen to me. If you are someone who's extremely sensitive, and you're going to be getting offended very easily with the things that I've had on the podcast, you might as well not even watch if it's going to get to the point where it's going to bother you. Because this is why I'm setting the disclaimer now. It's going to be opinion based, but realize that we are normal people enforcing our opinions on our daily life, just the way you are. We are just doing it in a show form. We are doing it on a platform where we're able to, where y'all are able to view it. So keep that in mind. Keep the thought that this is our opinion, and you don't necessarily have to agree, but let's all agree to disagree. Let's all be respectful of each other's opinions. And oh my gosh. Opinions and daily practices. Let's just respect one another and each other's opinions. I'm very excited for the people and the list of people that I will be having on very soon. I was trying to get 2 people on this week, which is about to end, but unfortunately, due to the winter storm, they were not able to show up. So hopefully we're able to do that next week when things start to heat up. But other things that y'all can kind of expect when it comes to the podcast is I want to do things just like this, where I'm able to sit down, whatever's on my mind, I'm able to just spill it out and just have a super long conversation, rant, and maybe some of y'all can benefit from it. Maybe you can't. Whatever it is, I am going to use this show and the platform that I will be releasing the show on, which by the way is on YouTube right now, and I'm working on getting it on Spotify, Apple Music, and all of that stuff. It's just a little complicated, but I will figure it out. But hopefully this will have some type of beneficial value to the people that are watching. Again, this is the big disclaimer. This is very highly opinion based. So if you're going to take all of this information and run from it, make sure that you are being responsible. This isn't a professional newscast. I'm not going based off of, I will do some research from time to time, but it's not like I'm doing very highly scholared researches or anything like that. Again, this is someone from the community just speaking their mind on a show, just like y'all. Y'all have opinions. I'm doing the same thing. I'm just doing it on a show. So with that being said, I think more or less I kind of explained what I want to project onto the show. I hope that y'all are excited. I'm very excited. I plan to bring inspiration. I plan to bring motivation, aspiration to people that you may be able to relate to. Things that you've always wanted to do and make a living off of. Somebody else can be doing it, and it might not be the norm for you right now, but being able to listen to someone who's literally living through it can help you. And that's what I kind of want to do here. So I hope that y'all are excited for this future. I'm excited for the future. If you know of anybody that can benefit from the podcast, the information, if you heard a podcast throughout the ones I've have released so far, or the ones that I will be releasing so far, make sure that you're sharing it with a friend. Hey, listen, I listened to this podcast. I think that it would be very beneficial. I'll link you. Something that simple. It's free. It'll help me out a ton. Make sure y'all are interacting with the video, leaving comments, likes, and definitely subscribe so you don't miss any uploads. But anyways, I know it was a short one, and on that note, these podcasts are not always going to be 3 hours long. They're not always going to be 1, 2, whatever hours long. They can be as short as this. Like I said, this is something that I want to do from time to time, where I just want to sit down and just rant and just talk. I feel like I should feel comfortable enough to do that on my own show. So, with that being said, thank y'all for watching. I appreciate y'all's time, and that's pretty much it. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share the video. Till next time, we're out. Peace.